Story 1. I am pregnant after a fertility struggle while my husband admitting getting someone else pregnant. My husband and I got married 3 years ago. When I was a teenager, I was told that due to medical complications, I may never be able to have children. But after 2 years of trying and fertility treatment, I'm now halfway through my pregnancy with our miracle baby. Unfortunately, because of some complications, I had to cut back on my hours at work. It's very physical. My husband offered to pick up more hours to compensate, so he's been working a lot more in the past 2 months and coming home later. I couldn't see that anything was amiss. Things were the same as they've always been. He always brings home flowers, food, things for the baby, coffee. He's always sending me thoughtful and loving texts throughout the day. The gaps where he was unreachable were explainable. But this morning, he sat me down and gave me the news that rocked me. He told me that he's been having an affair for the past 6 weeks and that his affair partner just found out that she's pregnant. He says that if she decides to keep it, she's going to raise it by herself and that they mutually agreed to end the relationship already. He wants to make things right. I don't know how things can ever be right again. He just wants to move on from what he's calling his transgression. How do I ever forgive him? How do you deal with the unthinkable? How do I learn to live with the idea that my child's sibling might be out there somewhere someday? Most importantly, how do I learn to move on like he wants me to? Edit. I have an OB appointment for unrelated medical reasons tomorrow, at which I will make sure to request extensive testing. I have plans to meet with a lawyer on Monday. I'm talking to my sister to see if I can stay with her. My relationship with much of my family are fractious, but I have a pretty positive relationship with her. I will not be seeking other options other than having my baby due to being pretty far along and having been told in the past I would not conceive. Regardless of what my husband has done, I love my child. Edit 2. I saw my OB on Friday and I will hopefully have some test results, fingers crossed for all negatives, within the next few days. I will meet the lawyer tomorrow and go from there. My sister advised me to stay at the house that my husband and I co-own until I talk to a lawyer. This has been such an emotionally harrowing time for me. He's acting like everything is normal. All I want to do is sleep. I keep telling myself it'll be over soon. Yeah, I mean, A, you're under no obligation to forgive him for what he's done. Especially with him just acting like it's like, that was my transgression. Big mistake, let's just move on. Like, no, that is a big mistake. And the ball is 100% in her court now. And if she cannot learn to trust you again and stuff, she has every right to be like, no, we're done. I can't imagine how you could do that. I'm always on that side. Now, if you want to try and work things through, I have known folks in the past who they've had, cheating issues come up, they've worked through it, and they've been together, another 10 or so years now, and that can work. But it takes a lot of work, I'm sure, and a lot to rebuild that trust that's been broken. And I don't think anyone is ever under the obligation to try to make that work when someone has transgressed like that. Story 2. Today I effed up for accidentally telling my husband I'm pregnant after a night of heavy drinking. This just happened and I can't tell anyone in my actual life because we're keeping everything related to pregnancy private. First off, I'm not pregnant. Not even close. Not even trying. My husband recently went with me to my IUD appointment. Intrinsically, I think he knew I couldn't be pregnant. But we have been talking about having kids for a year or so for Christmas, which we celebrated in January on a random weekend and exchanged personal gifts, I got him a First-Time Dad's Guide to Pregnancy book. I thought it'd be a sweet gift. I did not remember exactly what the book looked like. We were sipping mimosas for Christmas morning. Well, apparently, the front of the book in gigantic letters says, "We're pregnant!" My husband opened the present across from me and froze. He looked at the book. He looked at me. He was frozen. We cheated on dry January last night and got pretty sauced. He knows I just got my IUD swapped. I was sitting across from him happy and smiling, completely oblivious to the heart attack-inducing news he was trying to process, sipping a mimosa. He mumbled, "Is this what I think it is?" I said, "Yeah, it's a First-Time Dad's book." He responded, "Are you telling me?" And I was like, "Oh, God, no." He flipped the book around and we both stared at each other before busting out laughing. He needed a few minutes for his heart rate to come back down. My one question is, why would you get him a book titled, First-Time Dad's Guide to Pregnancy? when you're not just not pregnant, but as you said, not even trying. Like, like I can get it if you were trying to get pregnant and you're like, hey, I thought I'd get this for you, since we're trying. But you're not even trying, so yeah, I can definitely understand why if I got that book and looked at it, I'd be like, what? I would also be very shocked because my partner and I don't want to have kids, but that's a different story. But yeah, no, I don't understand how this happens and how you were even for a moment confused about it. It sounds like you were trying to play a big prank on him. So I feel like you would have been in on it. This is weird. Story 3. Divorcing my husband without trying to make it work. My soon-to-be ex-husband, Eric, 40 male, and I, 38 female, were high school sweethearts, and we grew up in a small town where the majority of the population was white. Eric is white, and while I am not a typical-looking white woman, I have enough features that I could be considered white-passing. I recently discovered I'm mixed race, important later. Eric and I got married after I graduated high school. I became pregnant when I was 26 and had fraternal twins, now 12, EJ, male, and Natalie, female. As the twins got older, EJ started to look like Eric, blonde hair, albeit curly and fair skin, and Natalie started to look like me, dark wavy hair, but her skin would get darker like she had a permanent tan. Eric and I were confused by this because no one in our families had a skin complexion like this. Eric became a cop after college. When the kids were 7, Eric got a chance for a promotion which moved us to the city. I started to notice that Eric would make prejudicial comments against certain communities of people that I would shrug off because they were not overtly offensive. One of Eric's coworkers noticed a picture of EJ and Natalie and asked if Natalie was adopted as she had African American features and suggested that I might have had an affair after conceiving with Eric, as it was possible that twins could be fathered by 2 different men. This planted a seed of doubt. By the time the twins were 11, Eric couldn't hold his doubt anymore and demanded a paternity test. He explained his doubt, so I obliged. The test came back as Eric being Natalie's father, but he would act distant towards Natalie. One day I was using Eric's phone because mine died to look for a recipe for dinner and came across a support forum where Eric was convinced I slept with a black man, was making awful comments about black people, and that I somehow altered the DNA test results. I was furious and confronted Eric. He said there was no way Natalie could be his and demanded another DNA test. I agreed to prove him wrong, and once the test came back, we contacted my parents because I was genuinely confused about where Natalie's features came from because my parents were white. After dancing around the topic, my mom confessed that my dad was not my real dad, and my real dad was biracial. After looking at an old picture, my dad looked white at first glance, but the longer you looked at him, the more you could see his African American side. I happened to not inherit those genes. This seemed to appease Eric, but I could not forget the comments Eric made about black people and told him I wanted a divorce. He apologized and said he couldn't understand at the time, but I told him it was disgusting that that was what he thought about the community, and I refused to raise my children in an environment that fostered and normalized negative thoughts about any community. Eric and my parents tried to get me to rethink my decision and to go to counseling. I agreed to go to counseling, but I'm not changing my mind about divorcing him. Yeah, 100% good for you. Eric sounds like a piece of crap. I'm sorry. If he was, just saying some racist crap, before all this with his cop friends and stuff like that, that's already a big old red flag that I'd be like, maybe rethink the whole Eric thing. And then to be demanding a paternity test because he's like, you cheated. That's not my daughter. He gets the results and then continues to be going online and being like, nope, it's still not my daughter. I'm sure of it, and saying racist things there. Yeah, I don't care what Eric says now that he's been proven wrong and understands how he's wrong. He was still a piece of garbage. And while I hope that he improves as a human being and tries to better himself, you are under no obligation to be a part of that journey with him. He has burnt down that bridge, and if you don't want him to build a new one, that is your choice, and I support it. Story 4. My boyfriend got me tickets for a cruise, causing our relationship to be over. I need to let this out without getting pushback from family and friends who think his gift is romantic, so I'm using a throwaway. My birthday is coming up in a few months, and 3 days ago I found out what my birthday present was, which are tickets to a cruise. His sister spilled the news thinking I would be excited, and I'm not. We live together, and I found the gift and know it's for me. It sounds so ungrateful, but I'm not. This gift just proves to me that things will never change. The first thing is, this gift isn't for me. I do not like cruises because I get really bad seasickness, and nothing I do helps. I also told him what I wanted to do for my birthday, which was to go to a Ren Fair festival on my birthday. I have already taken the week off from work in preparation to go to this fair. I've purchased tickets and am saving month to month so that I have spending money without it affecting finances at home. Why would he book tickets the same time as the time I took off to go to this festival? Also, this cruise wasn't cheap at all, so it's basically wasted money because I'm not going. I'm so annoyed. I have told him time and again that I don't feel like he listens to me, that I feel like he just gets me things by thinking about what's best for him or what he would like. It's not only gifts. He makes decisions based on what he thinks is best, and I just can't deal with it anymore. I love him, but I'm so done. And before anyone says I didn't talk to him or talk to him about this, I love him, but I'm so done. And before anyone says I didn't talk to him or to talk to him about this, I have repeatedly. This has been a reoccurring conversation in our 2.5-year relationship. The next thing to do is to talk this out and end things. Edit. I appreciate your comments and concerns about cheating, but I know the gift is for me because it was in really nice packaging and said, "Happy birthday, my name," and the bag had like cruise ship related items and possible excursions. The efforts he went to, it made me sad because that means he could have put a little effort about thinking about the things I like. If he even had just gotten me a ticket to the Ren Fair Festival or accessories from online or even a piece of an outfit that had to do with Ren Fair, it would have made my entire month. It would have meant that he listened and got me something that interested me. I'm talking to him tonight and I'm not even annoyed anymore. I feel nothing about this. This sounds like something out of a sitcom. It's so ignorant on this boyfriend's part. Like, the guy just, getting the thing that he wants for himself, but being like, no, it's a gift for you, for us to go on the cruise I wanted to go on and you said you hate. No, but I promise you'll like it even though you've been very insistent, but I'm going to use a birthday present for you as a way to prove you wrong about your dislike of cruises. No, don't do that. Listen to people. Get them the things that they want. And if you aren't sure if they might like it or not, then don't keep it a surprise. Talk to them. For my partner's 40th birthday, I thought, you know what she might like? She might enjoy a nice massage at a, nice hotel, a really nice dinner out and stuff like that, but I wasn't positive. And so I finally was like, you know what? This is for her birthday. It's important. It's something that she would want. And so I went to her and said, hey, I hate spoiling the surprise. It would have been really fun to just, wow you with it. But is this something that you'd be interested in? And her reply was, yeah, that sounds great. And so she did like it. She was happy. And we were able to do that. And yeah, sometimes your partner is going to be more open and just let you know, talking about the Ren Fair and tickets. So you shouldn't even have to ask. But like I said, if you're not sure, just ask because it's for them. And if you don't check in with them and you don't get it for them, then you don't care enough about them for them to stick around. Story 5. I blocked the nice guy for seemingly stringing me along, but I'm not sure. And I don't know what to make of it. I keep going back and forth between kicking myself for not being patient and patting myself on the back for walking away from a seemingly stagnant situation. Hopefully I can post this here for insight. We dated for 3 months. We got along really well and he made me feel special for my birthday. He hasn't really had a serious girlfriend before though. After our last date, which I thought went wonderfully, he began to withdraw and finally admitted he couldn't see me anymore due to issues his attraction to me caused, or women in general. It wasn't very clear. We are both Christians. He declined being friends because he didn't like that label for us, stating I was the only one he had been dating and still wished to talk. I liked him a lot, so I agreed. FF, he became more and more distant over the span of 3 weeks, but we would still text and FaceTime. Sometimes he'd let a day or two pass without saying anything, then pick up conversation again normally. During this little window, he'd given me a compliment and said some reassurance that my fondness was not misplaced in him, that he liked me too and missed me. He also asked that I don't remove him from social media yet, as we met on a dating site and I was already unmatched after that initial conversation. Then one night he confided in me, and I was happy, thinking this was the opening to a meaningful conversation, or perhaps him rescinding his wish to slow down while he dealt with his issues. Turns out he didn't really need the reassurance, and it was just a drunk text as he replied the next morning. I'm saying this plainly, but he wasn't rude or anything about it at all. Definitely a nice guy. This annoyed me a bit, though, because he kind of ended things with me due to feelings of lust and his faith. But drinking is okay? And drunk text or not, why would it matter asking if I felt safe with you if you wished to stop the progression of our relationship/closeness anyways? I was so confused. After a few days pass, and he suggested we catch up and watch a show together, which I'm happy to do. The day comes and he texts me once and never again for the night. So I essentially broke it off via text, whatever it was, and blocked him immediately after. I'm short on characters, so I can't explain in detail, but I did feel strung along at times, and I began to really dislike the feeling. Talking it out before this wasn't an option, I felt, because I'd be pouring into someone who basically already told me they aren't fulfilling that role right now, even though I did feel that he was not firm on that. The thing is, I kind of feel bad. I already miss him, and I'm wondering whether or not I wasn't patient or understanding enough. I feel like what bothered me did relate to his lack of experience, which contributes to the guilt I feel, but I also wonder if he was just exceptionally good at mind games and I had been naive all along. Otherwise, he was your typical nice guy through and through, and it was so refreshing to experience that for once. I don't plan on reaching out to him, but anyone with similar experiences or thoughts? First off, if you put quotes around nice guy, that's not a good thing. That is a bad thing. The typical nice guys are grade A jerks and deserve to be cast aside and left to better themselves before they should be allowed to come back in contact with anyone. It sounded like this person was struggling with commitment, having some personal issues, and frankly, you were kind of sort of seeing each other for 3 months and he backed things off. You're well within your right to just be like, yeah, I'm not going to keep putting my effort into this. Even if you do like him, it sucks when you really like someone and they're just not reciprocating that and not giving you like any sort of lifeline to be like, look, is this actually going anywhere? Or are you just going to keep stringing me along? And I think that you probably made the right call. And if he really does want to change, then he'll find a way to contact you and you can have an open and frank discussion about it. But otherwise, yeah, you do not deserve to have people just toy with you that long while they figure their crap out. You got a life to live, so go out there and live it. And if he wants to be a part of it, he can put in the effort now. Story 6. Today I effed up by making special brownies. Now let me give you some reference. My grandma is currently undergoing dialysis, and everyone around me knows I smoke. It's never been a secret that I smoke, so on to the story. Granted, this was yesterday. Regardless, I was making some THC brownies for myself yesterday around 7 p.m., some extra strong ones for my somewhat high tolerance. I get a call during baking saying my grandma has been in an accident, so I turn the oven off and rush out the house. I get to the accident and do the same mumbo-jumbo and exchange info, but my grandma's car wasn't drivable, so I figure I have to call her insurance and get the car towed. So the house is only a 5-minute drive from the house, so I take her home to rest, and so that I can handle everything and she's not in the cold, an hour or two go by and my mom arrives at the accident scene. We proceed to wait at the accident while I'm on the phone with insurance, still trying to get a tow out to me. While we were here, I let my mom know, hey, I'm making special brownies. Please let grandma and other mom at home know so they don't eat it. She proceeds to call them and let them know not to eat my brownies, failing to mention their THC brownies. So then we decide we're going to move the car to a safe location and go home and wait for the tow truck. We get home and I'm starting to take the brownies out of the oven and my mom decides she wants to try a piece. I tell her no 3 different times and she keeps on insisting and eventually eats a piece. I honestly don't think too much about it and go downstairs to talk to the insurance to see how long it takes, and another hour goes by. The insurance tells me it's going to take another 30 minutes, so we finally go out back in the accident and wait for the tow truck driver. 30 minutes go by, and my mom looks at me and says, "I think it's hitting me." I look over at her and tell her she'll be okay, just keep watching your show. She tells me she wants to go to sleep, so I tell her, "It'll be alright, I can handle the tow truck driver, just sleep." So we finally get the car home, and my mom is running into the house throwing up. I go over to my mom, and her wife is helping her out while I try and get the car parked into a spot in front of our house. We finally got everything settled and put my mom into bed. While I'm downstairs playing games in my room, my mom and her wife all of a sudden start screaming my name, so I sprint upstairs to see what was happening, and I see my grandma on the floor. I look at her and ask her, "What happened? Did you fall?" She responds with, "I didn't fall, I just fell over." This is when I go and check my Ring camera to see what happened. I watch the video, and she seems to be falling in slow motion, so in a panic I took her blood pressure and made sure she didn't have a stroke, but it looked like her pulse was normal and her blood pressure was extremely high. I called 911 to take no risk considering she was just in an accident and she's on dialysis. The paramedics come and talk to her, and she seems very out of it and not her usual talkative self. The paramedics do what they have to do and eventually take my grandma to the ER. While all this is happening, my mom is still high and is paranoid that I was going to get in trouble for giving her THC brownies. We live in a legal state. So I call my sister to help me, and she's confused on what's happening and why our mom wasn't calling her or talking to her currently. I assure my sister that our mom is currently not in the right state of mind to help us currently, and we're more likely on our own. We, my mom, her wife, my sister, and I, all finally get to the ER where my grandma is, and my mom still looks extra paranoid. I finally tell my sister what's happening, and she is laughing her butt off. Finally, the doctor allows one person in, so I let my sister go while I take my mom and her wife home. I get home and make sure my mom and her wife are good while I go downstairs and try to play some games while I wait to hear from my sister about what is happening. She eventually texted me and said that Grandma was projectile vomiting everywhere, and that's when it clicked for me that she had eaten one also. My sister tells me 30 seconds after texting me, asking the same thing, and we both figured it out. She lets the doctors know, but they still had to rule out any possibility of head trauma because of the accident. Another 2 or so hours go by, and they finally finish up her test, but won't release her because her blood pressure was still too high. Eventually, they release her after another 30 minutes, and we take her home and go to bed. My grandma, thinking we just weren't allowing her to have any of my brownies, had snuck downstairs while me and my mom were gone getting her car and ate a whole THC brownie, but as of currently, we're all getting a laugh out of it, and she's sleeping it off. As someone who has been in the hospital due to having way too much THC and losing my marbles, not a fun experience. Sticks with you in some rough ways, but I'm glad that they're able to kind of laugh it off and that everything turned out okay and that it didn't interact poorly with any medication or anything that grandma was on. But this is where I will say, folks, if you're in a state where this stuff is legal and you're of legal age to make it and have it and everything, do make sure when you have people around who might be able to have access to it, especially the elderly or kids, you have to let them know you really don't want to eat this. It contains a drug. It has THC in it. You need to be clear. You can't just be like, "Don't eat my brownies. You wouldn't dare eat my delicious brownies. They're not for you." That just makes them more tempting. You've just tempted your grandma. She was in an accident. She deserves a brownie, she thinks, and so she's gonna have one. No, you gotta be like, no, grandma, not unless you want to get real high. And then grandma might have said, "Oh, I'll just have a little then." Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.